My guest is HADASSAH FEINBERG, an independent advocate for Pennsylvanians at several different levels, including election interference and corruption and racketeering. And the interesting thing about HADASSAH, I was able to contact her through her YouTube videos, and she has started. Would you call yourself a whistleblower at this point, or I mean, are you in the
Yes,
system? Or
I've been calling myself a whistleblower for months now,
okay.
especially when I've been trying to get some protection from the government.
Okay. Well, welcome to the report. I wanted to have you on and I want you to share because I started researching you and I found a lot of cases and interesting things. And it looks like you, as a mother of four, without a team of attorneys, you're in this fight and you're battling what's going on in Pennsylvania. So I know that you mentioned a lot of different things in your videos, but why don't you start in the fall of 2023? What got you involved in all this? And then we can talk about the cases. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for having me on your platform. I appreciate it. So my name is Hadassah Feinberg. I am a former resident of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I grew up in the Jewish community in Harrisburg. Built my career up working in the schools. I worked in Harrisburg School District, Susquehanna Township, Central Dauphin.
Hmm.
I also spent 2 years working in counseling. I worked with children with special needs at TW Panessa. And I was planning on going to law school, and my life kind of took me in a different route. I ended up going to foster with Dauphin County Children and Youth in, I would say it was like late 2020, early 2021.
Okay.
So I'm actually taking you back a little bit farther.
Yeah,
Um,
I was actually working in Harrisburg radio at the time when you were
oh,
involved
were
in all
you?
this. So we probably crossed paths somewhere, maybe at the Capitol or something.
Maybe. But at the time, I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And I got involved with foster care. I successfully fostered for approximately 3 years. I adopted my youngest child by recommendation of Dauphin County. Through Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas, I adopted. Um, and then what happened in the fall of last year was, I don't even know if you want to call it a coincidence or maybe it was meant to be. But shortly after, I attended a closed event at Governor Josh Shapiro's governor's residence. I was actually there on a Jewish holiday.
Hmm.
It's called Sukkot. They had a sukkah built. A lot of the Jewish community was in and out of there.
Okay.
I took a picture with him and his wife. I posted it on Facebook. Shortly after that, I had been informed by someone credible in the Jewish community. I'm not going to name her just, so that we don't have the public trying to seek her out, but it is public record. And she informed me that there were 4 children that were taken by children and youth. She had been misinformed by the mother that abandoned them. And it started to unravel. I went on a 6-hour witch hunt trying to get those children a welfare check.
Hmm.
Those children, I'm just going to remind the public because I'm sure many of you do not know, but those children were the grandchildren of Philip Whitlin, a former Jewish cantor in the Harrisburg community that was convicted of assaulting, young boys and girls.
Hmm.
He was convicted of that. I believe it was back in 2001. It
Wow.
might have been 2001, 2002. Yeah. So I was informed because I knew of the mother. I went to school with the mother, but she was not in my class. Like she was 2 years older than me.
Right.
And I had tried to assist her for about 3 years, like, giving her diapers, giving her food. I knew that she was moving from house to house to house. She
Hmm.
wasn't stable, like she was having a lot of issues. Um, but as a single mother, I tried to relate, try to help her out, get her on her feet. And it kind of backfired. So, anyways, long story short, what happened was I had the Harrisburg Police Department, Officer Christian Ryback. He was the one that located the children. They were located at 63 North 18th Street. Now,
Hmm.
you need to be mindful of this address because there was a shooting there a week after I got the kids out of that house. But, anyways, he located them. He called me to come out and he basically said, listen, let the mom know that she still had legal rights. So she needed to be present to like move the kids from that house out of that house. There were people that were there, but they were all like hi and just total chaos
Hmm.
what was going on there. And those children were released to me. They were unclothed, soiled in feces. I had to provide them clothing from the back of my trunk. Like
Hmm.
I'm not children and youth. That wasn't my job. But I stepped up because that's what I needed to do at the time. And I called children and youth and I said, listen, you need to come out here. This is not a good situation. The mother had left the children there. Now I didn't find out until a week after. I was trying to help the mom, so I kind of went in thinking I was helping her when
Hmm.
was actually the one that abandoned them. Um, if you like go back, there's recordings from Officer Christian Ryback. I have the recordings, and I also put them on YouTube. Recordings from Officer Christian Ryback regarding the status the kids were found in. Witnesses that were there saying that the mother abandoned them for 12 hours. It was just a very chaotic scene.
So
Um,
he was a good guy in this process, obviously.
He was, but then they stopped him from speaking up.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so he was a witness, and I know from Chief Corey Dickerson is the county detective, the head of the county detectives.
Right.
He confirmed for me that the police report states that the children were found in horrible condition. But what ended up happening was I took the children in. I didn't know that they had scars at first. I thought it was just a neglectful situation.
Okay.
I think I was like, looking through like rose colored glasses. You try to see the best in everyone. I didn't realize how bad it was until they actually came in. And as soon as I started noticing that the children had what appeared to be either burns or ligature marks on their wrist,
Uh,
mind you, these four children, they were between the ages of 2 to 5, four
mm,
kids, and I brought them in on top of my four children who are also young. So I was taking care of about 8 children.
mm.
Um, and I took them to the or excuse me, I took them to UPMC. They were
Now,
treated by
what is UPMC for people that aren't familiar with it?
UPMC is the Harrisburg Hospital that's downtown. It's
Okay.
it's the main emergency room,
Yeah, I
main
just wanted
hospital
people to
room.
know, not just people in Pennsylvania, but people watching from other states, because I know for a fact, having researched some of your stuff here, this stuff's happening across the country, unfortunately. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that's a topic for another
Yes,
time. But
definitely.
um, yeah, I took the kids into the hospital. This was on October 13th. So like I got the kids at night, and the very next morning, I took my kids to school, and I took those children into the hospital to be seen. I was very concerned about the bruises. And Dr. Alyssa Schacht, she was the one that treated them.
Hmm.
She diagnosed them with suspected child abuse. It was documented. I still have the document. And I called what's it called? Children and Youth. Marissa McClellan is the director. She's
Okay.
fully aware of everything that transpired, and she's obstructing justice in this case. And after I left the emergency room, I called them and I'm like, "What are you guys gonna do?" Like, number one, I took them in as an emergency, but I already have 4 children. I'm not in a position to be raising 8 children by myself,
Yeah,
without the
that's wow.
CCTV. Yeah, I mean, they were supposed to come out to the scene and they failed that. Those kids had been missing. The one child that was in kindergarten, she had been missing from the Jewish Silver Academy, which is the elementary school that my kids were going to. The principal confirmed that kid was missing for 6 days.
6 days.
And nobody reported it. Nobody reported it. Samara Sofian is the principal of that school. And she is the one that told me directly when I was looking for those children and trying to get them a welfare check. Anyways, back to October 13th. So I reached out to the commissioner. I reached out to George Hartwick. And I spoke with Julie. Julie is his secretary. And I said, look, I have 4 children
Now, when you
that
say commissioner, who are you talking about? Commissioner
Commissioner of Dauphin County.
Dauphin County. Okay, and go back a minute to, if you would, you said you said that you believe someone's obstructing justice. Who was that individual? The woman in charge of
Okay.
what?
Dauphin County Children and Youth. Her name is Marissa McClellan.
Okay.
She was informed about the 4 missing children. I would say the first time I reached out to her, I think was around 1 o'clock on October 12th. The
Okay.
children were found by the Harrisburg Police Department around 6 o'clock in the evening. They did not respond to the scene. Dauphin County Children and Youth did not respond to the scene. They didn't come out. It was just me and the Harrisburg Police Department. And so I was trying to, advocate for these children. Look, the Dauphin County agency that's supposed to protect children, they're not doing their job. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm relying on them to do their job,
Hmm.
and they didn't come out. So I reached out to Commissioner George Hartwick.
Hmm.
I spoke with his secretary, and she said to me, what do you mean they didn't come out? And I said, look, I've had these kids since 6 o'clock last night. They're in my care. They've been diagnosed with suspected child abuse from UPMC, and no one's laid eyes on them. Like the Children and Youth Agency has not laid eyes on them. And so she said to me, give me 10 minutes. And I said, okay. I don't know who she contacted, but 10 minutes later, I get a call. I think it was from Kim Deibler. She's another employee at Dauphin County Children and Youth.
Hmm.
She informs me, hey, we're going to send out Scott Smith. Scott Smith is a supervisor at Dauphin County Children and Youth, and he's a huge part of this because he came after my kids later on. So just remember
Okay.
his name.
Okay.
Anyways, he ends up coming out to the house at 6:30. He says to me, I'm really impressed that you're managing 8 kids by yourself. It was a lot. There was a lot
I
going on.
I think two are a lot, actually.
It was a lot, exactly. And not just that, but what I had been doing, I'm a huge advocate. I had been reaching out through WhatsApp, through my Jewish community, to all of the members of the Jewish community, trying to organize a fundraiser, bring car seats, bring clothing,
Hmm.
bring stuff for these children. Like it's enough that I'm trying to step up and get them stuff, but then I also know how to use my resources, right? You can reach out to the community, and that's what a village is for, right?
Hmm.
And people are dropping things off. And so we have a lot of witnesses. Everybody was like, wow, thank you for what you're doing. It's amazing that you stepped up for these children.
And
And
you had a lot of support.
I had so much support,
Excellent.
correct?
Excellent.
Um, and and that was basically it. I showed Scott Smith the bruises on the kids. He took pictures with his phone. Everything was, the way I thought everything was fine at the time. And then I would say 2 days later, so this was on a Friday. Remember, I got them on a Thursday. On Friday, he comes out. It took them 24 hours to come out to check on these children.
Hmm.
Completely unacceptable. And then fast forward to Sunday, I'm a huge advocate. I reach out to there's her name. I forgot what her name. I think it's Shapri. Shapri. She's the facilitator at Dauphin County Children and Youth.
Okay.
And I said to her, look, Monday the kids have school. I have, whatever amount of seats in my car. I can't get all these kids to school. I don't have a bus, right?
That's
I don't have a mini bus in the back of my SUV.
right.
I need you guys to organize transportation for the children. And she says, okay, they're fully on board with me and, me taking care of these kids. If they had a problem, they would have taken the kids out of my house. And basically, she sets it up. And then Monday morning, I go into Dauphin County Children and Youth with the three younger children, the three younger Smith children. So the
Hmm.
one goes off to her kindergarten with my other kids,
Right.
and then I take the other three in, and
Okay.
they are able to get the mother of the children, Marcy Smith, they're able to get her to sign over legal custody to Dauphin County. So that way they
Okay.
don't have to get emergency custody. They were able to convince her. And she says, yes, I want Hadassah, to hold on to them temporarily. She knew I was a great mother, blah, blah, blah. Right.
This is what the mother said.
Yes. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
she knew a lot about me because I had been helping her. So,
Hmm.
she knew I did foster care. She knew everything like that. And we leave that meeting. It was like not a conciliation meeting, but it was like a to get the mom on board with how this
Right.
was going to work. So I was supposed to kinship those children temporarily until I don't know what, until they figured out a plan.
Hmm.
And so fast forward to 3 o'clock. It was either 3 or 3:30. We set up an appointment for them to come out again to my house. Now, this is October 16th. We set up an appointment for them to come up so that they could initiate the kinship packet. They had to complete the kinship packet. And so they come out, they go through the rooms, who's going to sleep where, we're going to make this official. I'm explaining everything. And they basically tell me that they want me to kinship through Families United. It's a foster care agency that's local, to Harrisburg. It might be
Hmm.
across Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I said, well, I've already been in touch with um, PA Mentor. PA Mentor, I had a relationship with them because I had adopted before, and like my adopted sons, but like his biological siblings, they had adopted through that place. And I
Hmm.
was like, no, I wanna go through them. You can pick the agency you're working with. And they said to me, they said, we're going through Families United. If you're not gonna agree to it, we're not gonna fund it. And I said, well, if you don't fund it, you're withholding funds that the children need. They need things. This isn't money for me, this is money for them, right? And I basically stand my ground and I said, listen, I'm not going to do that. I'm already doing enough. I went out to the incident where this happened and you guys didn't come out.
Hmm.
This is your job. I'm not signing up to take in four more kids. I'm helping you. Like this
Yeah.
isn't something I had stopped fostering maybe like 10 months before. I adopted my youngest child and I was good with four kids. Like four kids is a lot. And so, anyways, they basically tell me, like, if you're not going to agree to this, then we're not moving forward with funds. So they leave me in a position where I'm with those four children. They're not backing it up. And so I said, well, you know what? The Jewish community is helping. I don't need the money. I don't need your funds. Like it kind of came into like we're going to try to control you. And I'm like, no, you're not. And so, long story short, they ended up leaving. And I wrote Josh Shapiro an email. I reached out to the governor's office and I reached out to OCYF, is the Office for Children and Youth Families.
Hmm.
They're part of the Department of Human Services. They're above Dauphin County Children and Youth. And I tell them, listen, I give them the whole timeline. These kids were found at this time, they didn't come out. This happened at this time, they're not helping the kids, blah, blah, blah. And I would say the next morning, which was October 17th, I took those children into Penn State. This is where it gets a lot more complicated, but I took them into Penn State and I wanted to have them evaluated for the scars again because nobody was like telling me, what am I going to do? They weren't being treated properly. Yes, they were diagnosed, but like, what's the plan? If I don't have children and youth, behind these children, what am I supposed to do? I also sent a portal message, which I can send to you, but I sent a portal message telling them, look, children and youth is not helping these children. You guys are doctors, you guys are a hospital. Help me out. I don't know what to do. What I didn't realize at the time, though, is that Penn State and children and youth work together.
Penn State Hospital
Yeah,
Medical.
so
Yeah.
they weren't gonna help me with those kids.
Mm.
And so basically I was walking into fire. Do you remember the whole thing with Sandusky, how they covered it up and that whole situation with Joe Paterno?
Yeah, there were some issues there. Yeah, that was not good.
Covered it up for a while. So, anyways, I took the kids in. We went into Penn State, and while we were at Penn State, I brought the discharge paper from UPMC. I
Hmm.
explained to them, hey, these kids were found in horrible condition. They were diagnosed with suspected child abuse. They ended up confiscating. The doctor's name is Catherine Crowell, and she's part of the RICO case, by the way. They
Okay.
ended up confiscating the paper, the discharge paper that I got from UPMC, and made it look like no one ever diagnosed the kids with suspected child abuse. It never happened. Nothing ever happened. And they basically, okay, so there's a lot of information, but when I was there, the youngest, not the youngest child, but the 3-year-old boy, he has like some neurological issues. He was banging his head on the floor, and I was like, he needs a helmet. I have an
Oh my
email.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I think the kids were going through
Mm.
a lot of trauma and acting out. Young kids like that, when they can't verbalize themselves, they
Hmm.
they do different like physical things. And
Right.
I sent an email to children and youth like, he needs a helmet. I can't take him out of the hospital until we have some sort of like safety thing in place. And I called Rachel Kaur. Rachel Kaur is a social worker from Jewish Family Services. And I said to her, I said, listen, I need to leave the hospital. I think it was like 3:30. I need to leave the hospital at 3:30. But
Hmm.
they're not telling me what to do with the youngest child, or not the youngest child, but the 3-year-old boy. I don't know what to do because he's banging his head. And she said, you need to tell them that either children and youth needs to like come there and be there with the boy. I was going to take the other kids with me, but the boy needed like medical attention. And she said, either you need to like tell them that they need to come or you're not taking him home with you. He needs to stay under medical supervision. And that's what I said. And when I basically told them, like, look, I need to go get my kids off the bus, I'll take the other two. One of them was in school, right? One of the Smith kids was in school with my kids.
Right.
Um, but the one boy, I don't want to say his name, but the one boy that was banging his head, either they needed to like give him a helmet or there's some sort of protocol for kids that are head banging. You
Yes.
can't just like take a kid home like that.
Yep.
And so they basically blocked me at the door and said, if you're not taking the three of them home with you, you're not taking any of them home with you. Rachel Kaur was a witness. She was on the phone with me. I
Wow.
am telling you, I was so afraid leaving that hospital. I didn't know what to do. Like, you expect these doctors to be, upstanding and have the children's best interest. And I think for me, I was in so much shock that they were assisting Dauphin County. Anyways, I ended up leaving, like, okay, then you're leaving me no choice. I'm not going to take him home like that. And so I drove home to basically get my kids off the bus and get the other Smith child off the bus. And when I got there, about 5 minutes later, Dauphin County Children and Youth came out. They picked up the other child, the one that had not been at the hospital with us,
Okay.
um, took all the stuff. And then the very, very following day, they file allegations against my children. Okay. So, like, the whole thing turns. They end up placing those 4 kids back with the mother that abandoned them. Mind you, Marcy Smith, she testified in front of law enforcement. She was using crack cocaine. She has a charge of domestic violence for serious bodily injury. I didn't know this at the time, but the
Right.
dad informed me and I went and researched it. It's online. It's a public record. This woman has charges. She left them for 12 hours. But what do they do to cover up, their mistake? They put the kids back with the person that left them. And then they come after the family that was trying to help those kids.
So
It's like
they come after you,
they come after
and
me.
target your 4 children, which are your children. Adopted
Correct.
children. Okay.
They file allegations. You ready for this? They file allegations for my son's special needs bed. My son is autistic. He has a prescription bed from Penn State, ironically. His
Right.
doctor at the time was Penn State. They target his bed. They report, and mind you, they don't allow witnesses. They
Hmm.
report that they went out to my son's school. Now, think of this, they were in our home. They saw my son's bed on the 13th when they came out. They don't file a complaint against me until after I file a complaint against them.
Okay.
Okay. They had to go into my son's school to be able to create an allegation stating that my son said he was being locked up in a bed. So it's never been reported. They make their own allegation. And by the way, I got the CPS reports. Okay. The whole thing went unfounded. It was ridiculous.
How old is your
But
son?
my son is 8.
Okay, so he's old enough to, you
He's
know,
old enough to tell the truth.
I was going to say, yeah,
Okay.
he's old enough to tell the
Yeah.
truth, but
And he's
he's all,
verbal, high functioning.
yeah, I was going to
Let me,
say
yeah.
his functional level is probably also he's at an age where he can be easily manipulated.
Oh, but he wasn't. He actually punched them in the stomach. Let me fast. Good for him, right? He tried to defend himself. No, but I'm gonna fast forward because there's a lot of details. So basically, after they place the kids back with the mom that left them, and I
Hmm.
have two recordings on YouTube. It's not on the YouTube that I just posted. I'm gonna have to upload them to the new
Okay.
YouTube.
Go ahead and continue. I'm just going to get a
Okay.
document here. Go ahead. Continue
Okay.
the story.
Okay. So basically, um, where were we? Okay. So after they place the kids back with Marcy, they come after my family, they target my family, they try to make it look like I imagined the entire thing. Remember, they confiscated that paper from UPMC, right?
Hmm.
Guess what I do? I go back to UPMC.
Okay.
I knew that I needed that discharge paper that they confiscated, right?
Yes.
I go back to UPMC and I get it again because I knew they were going to lie. I knew that they were going to try to cover it up. They tried to make it look like no hospital indicated those kids with abuse. Remember, they're putting the kids back with the perpetrator.
Right.
They could
And
get in big trouble for that.
I was and also I'm thinking what what about all the markings? You said there were scars and
They
there were
tried to make it look
visible
like there was no,
markings.
I do, and I have pictures and I posted it on Facebook. They
Uh-huh.
make it look like nothing happened to those kids. It's wild. I can't even wrap my head around it. This mother has like 10 different criminal charges. She was actively under the influence. She abandoned them there for 12 hours. I didn't know the people that were at that house. I didn't know them at the time that I got those kids. I was just there to step up for those children. But I went back after the fact and I found the owner of the house and I spoke with her and I have a recording from her testimony saying that the mother left the children. She left at like 5 in the morning. She didn't leave them food. She didn't leave them clothes. She didn't do any of that. And that lady left too. Those kids were alone without supervision for 12 hours. It might have been longer. I don't know. But those kids were like 2, 3. There's two twins, 3, and 5. Children at that age cannot fend for themselves.
Oh my
When
God.
I got those kids, they had no bladder control. They were so traumatized and just feeding them. They were like gouging food. They were starving. It's unbelievable. And when you look back at it, these people wanted me to kinship. If they had a problem
Now,
with my
let me stop
child's
for a second
bed,
here. The kinship concept. What does that mean in the world of fostering and child health services?
yeah. So
Kinship. What does that
kinshiping
mean?
is like fostering,
Okay.
but it means that you have a relationship to the family. So it's preferred for somebody that knows the children
Got it.
to
Okay.
care for them if they're qualified, which obviously if they wanted me to kinship, they knew I was qualified. They
Right.
didn't have an issue with my son's bed. They came out on October 13th, right?
What do you think?
Nobody,
What do you
yeah.
think is motive? I mean, this is such a dark frustrating story, but we hear this from not only in Pennsylvania, we hear it from other states as well. What do you think is motivating these decisions? These decisions sound so like what, where's the common sense? That happens a lot in government. There's not a lot of common
Okay,
sense. But what do you think is
so
motivating the loss of documents and the change of narrative?
oh, they didn't lose the documents. They have all the documents.
Okay.
They were trying to defend themselves so they didn't lose their positions. If you think about Iris Mummert, the baby that was killed in Adams County after she was placed back by children and youth workers with her biological mom, she was placed back and then the mom killed her. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their jobs. Of course, they're going to make it look like that's not what happened. And you know what? They have the ability to do that. They're this agency that's supposed to protect children. Is anyone going to listen to a mom, like a single mom over here? Or is everyone going to listen to the agency that's quote unquote supposed to protect children? And let me tell you, on October 13th, when I had those kids, I called Susquehanna Township Police Department and I'm like, look, at the time I lived in Susquehanna.
Hmm.
Look, kids are here. I want you to document this. They said, well, Harrisburg Police Department, they have jurisdiction because that's where the kids were found. Okay, but I'm living here and they documented it too. There's multiple law enforcement agencies that knew about these children. I can send you so many emails that were forwarded to these personnel and they dropped the ball on these kids. But that's not where it stops. It gets worse after what they did to us. Like it went from one situation
Right.
to an entirely unnecessary situation afterwards to try to cover their tracks. So after that happened, after they placed the kids back with her, they
Hmm.
start fabricating allegations against me. Okay. They are going into my kids' schools multiple times, and my kids are freaking out. Mommy, he's saying that they're going to take us away from you. I have recordings from October when my kids were reporting this. They didn't take my kids until November. So I thought law enforcement was supposed to protect us. I didn't realize at the time that they were working together. But I was already reporting this to law enforcement. Help us. They're going to take my children. Look at what they're doing. Please help us. Like, what should we do? And there was nobody to help. I went to local law enforcement. I went down to Harrisburg Police Department. I notified them, hey, you just put the kids back. Not you, but like Marissa McClellan just
Hmm.
put those back with the mom that abandoned the kids. She has a domestic violence charge for serious bodily injury. They weren't at the scene. I was. Listen to me. I was a witness. I was
Okay.
there, you know? And so, anyways, I went to all this law enforcement. Nobody is helping me. I tried to reach out to the state police. Nobody would help me. And then I end up going, this was, I believe it was like October 19th or 20th. So, like, fast forward a week, forget about the other kids. They're coming after my family. I knew what they were going to do. Like, when you just know that something is going to happen, what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Anyways, I end up going to Baltimore for the weekend. I went to school there. I went to a Jewish high school in Silver Spring, Maryland. So, like, I had a lot of friends there, and I go there and I'm trying to talk to people. What should I do? What should I do? Nobody knows what I should do. Nobody knows what to do in a corrupt situation. It's something you never dream of, and it's something that once you're in it, it's unbelievable. Like you have no one to turn to. And I end up reaching out to the FBI. This is where the FBI got involved. I go in person to meet with Kenneth Keller. He's a supervisory agent with the Manassas, Virginia field office. And
Okay.
I talk to him in person for 3 hours. I show him evidence of the scars on the kids. I show him emails going back to October 12th when I was trying to get them to help those children. Um, and he basically tells me, listen, I don't have jurisdiction. The Philadelphia office has jurisdiction. Those are the people that you need to talk to. And I said, okay. He tells me, like, go back to Pennsylvania. You guys are going to be fine, blah, 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 right? Nobody
Hmm.
thinks anything to happen except for me because I know what they're doing. And long story short, I come back. As soon as I drop my son off at school, 5 minutes later, I get pulled over by Susquehanna Township Police Department.
Okay.
This is unreal. You ready for this? Pulled over by them. They say that I ran a stop sign. I have never run a stop sign in my life. I end up appealing it. They dismissed it. It never happened. I get pulled over by them. We get targeted by that same officer. His name is Adam Young. I think he was with Susquehanna for like 2 months. We get targeted by him. They knew about CYS because I had been reporting it to them
When
to
you
help
say
us.
get targeted, what do you mean?
He threatened me like 3 or 4 times that he was going to charge me with child endangerment, and he tried to pull me over. So what they were doing was either they were trying to get me with a crime or make me look like I was crazy. That's how they try to like silence people. They'll either try to like get you locked up. Now I couldn't prove that at the time, only after the fact when you look back. I appealed the citation. They ended up dismissing it because it never happened. It's just a side fact. But this is what was going on. These people worked together. And I didn't know at the time. I'm going to tell you about the Petersons in a little bit. Same people that targeted them. Anyways, fast forward, what ends up happening on October 26th, like after I'm begging law enforcement for help, I tell my family, I'm like, I cannot stay in Susquehanna. They are literally going to take my children. I pick up with my children. I have a beautiful home, a $2,000 mortgage at the time. I pick up with my family and I go to Cumberland County. I knew that they were going to take my kids. I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. I moved my jurisdiction over to Cumberland County. Now, of course, we don't have a house. We don't know where to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
We stayed at a hotel for like a week, and I'm over there. And what happens on November 3rd? Susquehanna Township Police Department, they tell my friend Amy Otstadt, she was also working with me in the counseling agency. She's also a mandated reporter. She's been a witness for most of this thing. They basically tell her to inform me that they're going to investigate CYS, but they really weren't. It was a plan to like lure me back to Susquehanna.
Okay.
And
For
so
a mandated reporter is, if I'm to understand correctly in Pennsylvania, someone that
is
because
supposed to
they're
report abuse.
right, they have to by law if they're aware of
Right,
it or they see it. So
right.
that's
But
and
actually,
cops are
yeah,
mandated reporters, social workers. I think lawyers are. I'm not sure, but and then CYS is Children Youth Services, right?
correct.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep people when they hear different terms, they can stay with the story and see where it's going.
No, I appreciate that because I know like I'm used to like the short abbreviation.
Hmm.
Um, but basically, she witnessed the entire thing. She actually spoke on. Do you know what Black Newsbeat is? They interviewed me there. I don't know if you're familiar with Black Newsbeat. There's an interview on YouTube of this back in I think it was January or February.
Okay.
Um, but long story short, she goes with me because I'm very scared of CYS. Remember, they don't wear body cameras. I know that they're lying. I know that the allegations that they're making is not true. She
Hmm.
goes with the house. The detective, her name is Lee Ann Tarasi. She's a detective with Susquehanna Township. She meets me there. They set me up. They served me with a warrant, and they took my son was the one that was with me. He was sick that day. They take him and they take my kids from the schools. Okay. So everything I've been telling the FBI, they're going to take my kids. They're going to take my kids. Oh, don't worry. Oh, don't worry. They do. Okay. They take my kids. They write in their not affidavit. It's like a dependency petition
Hmm.
that no hospital diagnosed the other kids with suspected child abuse. Okay. They
Interesting that
try to
that
make
would
it
come
look.
up.
Oh yeah, interesting. They try to make it look like I'm hallucinating the whole thing. Remember, they confiscated the paper at Penn State. They didn't know that I went back and got it again.
Okay.
Okay. So they don't know that when they file that petition. And by the way, when they file a dependency petition, did you know that the parent is not there? So crimes are being alleged against this parent, right? Child endangerment, neglect, all this stuff, but they don't need any evidence.
But
It's just
they don't have any representation or any way to defend themselves.
the parent has no way to defend
That's
themselves
what
because
I'm
they're not
saying.
there
Yeah.
when they go and get the warrant. It's unbelievable what's happening in family court, but that's a topic for another day.
Oh, definitely. I mean, family court, we could that is, and
It's
you know this
unbelievable.
the scary
Yeah,
thing about this, and this would be for another day as well. I'm glad you're getting an opportunity to explain this in such detail because I think uh so few mainstream media people really give a damn about this topic, number one, because it doesn't fit into the little pieces they need. And most of the mainstream media just stays in lockstep with the government. And
right.
if you've never been in a battle, a protracted lawfare battle with the government, where your own tax dollars are paying for lawyers and people to come after you,
It's unbelievable.
it is
It's
really.
a
And
corporation. It's a corporation. This is
yeah,
a business. They
yeah,
make $41,000 a year for every child that they take.
jeez,
And then they get bonuses for not returning the child to the family, for adopting them in. Look at my youngest child. I'm getting $1,200 a month for him not going back to his mom. What? You
wow,
know? How come the mother's not getting $1,200 to raise her child? I
wow.
know that the mother of my youngest child that I adopted, she's homeless. Do you think that she could get a home with that amount of money to be with her child?
So there are just
Probably.
so many layers to this.
There's so many layers to this,
So
but let's fast forward because you want to learn about how Shapiro's involved and the other
Well,
officials, right?
not only that, I kind of
Sure.
want to find out like what is the status of your children today?
Oh, my
And
children are with me full custody. So let me tell you what happened.
beautiful. I just that's because
Thanks.
I was afraid this was
Hallelujah.
yeah,
Hallelujah. It would not have ended well if that didn't happen. Um, no, you know
yeah,
what I mean.
yes.
But so I already knew what they were going to do because they were fabricating allegations against me. So
Okay.
I tried to get help from law enforcement. I couldn't understand why they weren't helping. It's mind blowing because you're raised to think that law enforcement is there to protect you. And I'm telling them these people are committing crimes, yet they're helping the mother that abandoned the kids and they're coming
Mm,
after me. I was blown. The Jewish community was blown. Nobody knew what to do. Okay. And so what ends up happening, so remember, I moved my jurisdiction on October 26th. Well, I left my house on October 26th. I changed my jurisdiction on November 1st, 2 days before they lured me back. So remember, they lured me back to a place I'm not staying at. Okay. The people that put this dependency petition in didn't even have jurisdiction to take my kids. But they don't know that because they didn't know that I knew what they were going to do. And so I was already preparing for, God forbid, this horrible outcome, right? I wanted to believe it wasn't going to happen,
mm,
but I knew inside that it was going to happen. So you have to protect yourself. And so, anyways, I had moved the jurisdiction and I also moved my kids' school. I moved from Susquehanna Township School District. By the way, that school did not protect my children. Horrible. Like when it comes to children and youth, these people have so much power. They will not provide witnesses. If you ask for witnesses, sorry, but we don't have to do that. You have nothing. You can't protect your children. It's unbelievable.
Now, is that
Anyways,
in your opinion, is that and in your experience, is that because children and youth, because I know in other states, those departments have a financial relationship with the schools. Is that one of the reasons that a
I
teacher or the lunch lady or someone won't go on record and say, here's what I saw happen with her child? Is it because they're threatened as well?
so okay, so I am very careful about who I accuse. It has to be based on fact, right? So, up until this point, I have not spent enough time investigating why that public school district would not help. But I did include
Mhm.
Tamara Willis. She's the superintendent of Susquehanna Township. And I also
Right.
included the principal on the RICO lawsuit because they failed to protect my children.
Hmm.
They allowed the perpetrator to be alone with my child in the room and fabricate allegations.
Yeah,
That's
that's crazy.
unbelievable.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Without evidence, without anything. I asked them for witnesses. We can't provide that. CYS like no, CYS doesn't control everybody. These people are giving them too much power. And whether or not there's an interest behind the school, I don't know. But I will tell you
Hmm.
that my girls were at the Silver Academy, the Jewish school. They tried to advocate for my children. Samara Sophia, and I have a letter from her that I provided to the court saying, we don't have concerns for Miss Feinberg's children. They come dressed, they come to school every day. Listen, the kids that were missing from school for 6 days were put back with the mother that abandoned them, okay? Without the county taking those kids. The mother that's not only caring for her own children, taking her kids to school, taking her kids to doctors, taking someone else's kids to doctors.
Hmm.
That's the mother you come after, the one that fostered with you for 3 years. It's unbelievable. But the Silver Academy, they tried to protect and they couldn't. They didn't allow them. Tony Fry, he's the security officer. They have a private security officer. He asked Scott Smith, can I be in the room to be a witness? He was refused. They would not allow a police officer who's not, they, forget Susquehanna Township. That officer is at the school. He's paid by, the
Yeah. School
they hired
resource
him for safety. Yes.
school resource
Why
officer.
can't he be in the room? Why can't he be in the room as a
Yeah,
witness?
that's absurd. I would think that he
It's
would be.
absurd.
I would
But I
think.
will give
Yeah.
yeah, I will give the Jewish community credit because they tried. They tried to protect my children and their hands were tied. Okay.
Hmm.
But anyways, long story short, okay, so going back to us moving jurisdiction. So I had moved my son's public school over to Cumberland County. I knew I had to get out before they took my kids. And so, but I let the girls stay at the Silver Academy because it was a private school. So I was
Okay.
still able to transport them back and forth. You don't want to move your kids if you don't absolutely have to. You want your kids
Right.
to have consistency to, they were doing well.
Stability.
And so I'm going back and forth. The police are trying to find us. You asked me how I know that now because I obtained police reports. They were seeking us out. They were stalking us. They were harassing us. It was horrific. They were trying to take the kids, but I was able to see it retroactive once I got the police reports. Anyways, long story short, um, so they lure me back. They take my kids, and then they tell me this was a Friday when they took my kids. It was November 3rd. They tell me, we'll see you on Monday at the shelter hearing. They served me at 3 o'clock before the courts closed, left me for the whole weekend, not being able to go to any lawyers, not being able to go to any court, not being able to tell people, like, look what's going on. And so what do? I try to go to the night court. They wouldn't let me come in. I tried to go to the state police. I took my son's medication. Two of my children needed medication. You ready for this? My son has an EpiPen. That's a life-saving device.
Yep.
I took my kids' clothing and my kids' medication. I have a picture at the state police on November 3rd. I think it was around 9 o'clock. I take everything in there. Please get this to my children. My children don't have the stuff that they need. I'm sorry, we can't help you. You need to leave. What?
Wow.
So now we have a children and youth that's not protecting children, right? But then we also have the state police. Are you kidding me? This is it's like from the Twilight Zone. This is something you never imagine.
Well,
Anyway,
we have
yeah,
this illusion that
yeah.
you see a badge or an official credential and that with a pat on the head, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Now, for example, like the FBI agent that was very helpful and he was encouraging and listening to you in Maryland, even he said, don't worry, because he probably has confidence in the local law
He
enforcement.
does. He does. And I have an email from him from March. So remember, okay, let me quickly, there's a lot of details and I don't want to confuse everybody. But my kids only stayed, okay, so my kids only stayed in their care for 13 days. I got my kids back. They were not adjudicated. Let
Okay.
me tell you the miracle that happened.
So they
So,
held your kids for just about 2 weeks.
yes. So let me tell you what happened. For the first 5 days, they were under Dauphin County's non-jurisdiction. Let's just say non-jurisdiction because they really didn't have jurisdiction. But
Okay.
it took time for me to be able to go to the shelter hearing on that following Monday, right? So I go into the shelter hearing, and who's the judge? The judge happens to be Judge John McNally, the one that gave me my adoptive son.
Oh my God.
Hold on. And what this is going to shock you. The dependency petition, do you think that they told the court that I was an adoptive mother for 3 years?
Probably not.
No, why would they make me look reliable, right? They weren't trying to help. They were trying to remove my kids. They were trying to punish me, okay? Retaliate. They weren't going to tell them that's not that's not important information that I was a reliable foster mom. No, we're not going to tell the court that. They tried to make me look like a criminal. They tried to get me charged with per se acts. Per
Mm.
se acts are basically locking somebody up. Like they could have tried to get me charged for like 10, 12 years of incarceration. Unbelievable. Thank God the Department of Human Services threw that out. It was completely unfounded. Like I don't have my kids were never adjudicated. The whole thing was unfounded. But then once they're not able to do the criminal part of it,
Right.
then they try to make me look crazy. So those kids weren't abused. No hospital indicated those kids with abuse. They tried whatever they could to come after me for exposing them. Okay. Anyways, so we do the shelter hearing. At the shelter hearing, I say to the judge, "Oh, Bob Lieberman was appointed to me public defender. He's from the Jewish community. He takes me in a room because I meet with him at the court when they're going to decide if my kids stay kidnapped. If you want to, it was a kidnapping.
Yep.
And I say to Bob Lieberman, this is a corruption case. There's no grounds. This whole thing is fabricated. I want to represent myself because he didn't know enough about the backstory because they don't give you enough time to be able to communicate with the attorney they assign you.
That's on purpose.
Of course, they want to catch you with at complete surprise. You don't have witnesses. You don't have anybody with you. You can't file anything. You're screwed.
Yep.
The criminal justice system has more rights than the family court. So family court, they target you with crimes, but you have no due process. It's
Hmm.
unbelievable. Anyways, and I had never been through this. I had seen a termination hearing for the mother of my youngest child when I adopted,
Yep.
but I wasn't the one that had the children removed from my care. I never went through that persecution. Anyways, so I get there and I oh, Judge John McNally, he calls me in with Bob Lieberman and what's it, a conciliator? Not the conciliator, the attorney for Dauphin County Children and Youth. He calls me into the chambers and we talk it over and I say, look, this whole thing is false. Like, you want me to defend against the dependency thing, but this whole thing it's hearsay. You know, I have 1,000 pages of physical evidence regarding those kids. This is unbelievable. So he says, you know what? He said, if you want me to move the jurisdiction over to Cumberland County, I knew I had to get it out of Dauphin County. That's why I left. I knew
Right.
that if I got stuck there, I would never get my kids back. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh. Anyways, so he moves it over to Cumberland County. He sends it to Judge Guido. He's the president judge of Cumberland County Court of Common Pleas. And then it gets postponed. So it's postponed from Monday to Wednesday now.
And
So remember,
your kids are still
my
in
kids
custody.
are still, they place my kids with strangers, okay? The only one they placed with family, they're supposed to place them with family. I have
Yep.
hundreds of mandated reporter friends. I worked as a teacher, I worked in counseling. They could have been put with so many people from the Jewish community.
Right.
They put my girls in York, 45 minutes away. They
Wow.
tormented my family. Like, I can't even begin to describe this. My 3-year-old, the one that I adopted, remember, 3 of my kids are biological. Only the youngest one is adopted. My 3-year-old, they put him with the biological siblings that are with another adoptive family that he's only met like 3 times. Okay. not with the siblings he's being raised with since birth. Okay, I've had my adoptive son since he was 2 days old.
So I want to
These
just point,
people are,
I do
yeah,
want to point that out.
they
Uh,
don't have the best interest of children.
so you have four children, three are biological,
Hmm.
and one is adopted. So that's
Right.
another part of this equation that's so backward because they have.
I can't hear you. Oh no. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I just had a little uh, thing on there with the microphone. Let me just make sure it's still working. Still working.
Yes, I can hear you.
So you know what I want to do? I want to let let's let's take a break because I want to just make sure our hookup is still solid
Okay.
because the stories it's right at that point where I think people really we want to find out because and it amazes me uh that they were willing to take your biological children to teach you a lesson. Like
Hmm.
we'll teach you to file a complaint against us. We'll say
Yeah,
you're not only a bad foster mom or adoptive mom, you're a bad biological mom. And
I'm a criminal. I'm a
yeah,
criminal.
that is
And hallucinating at the same time. I'm both crazy and criminal.
and the
You
scary thing
know?
about this is this can happen to any of us.
Oh, if it could happen to me, it can happen to anybody. I worked with them for 3 years.
Yeah. So
I was
let's
recommended to adopt by them.
I want to take a quick break. We're going to come back with part two with
Okay.
Hadassah Feinberg. We're gonna dig into the legal stuff and this is good for me too because I'm getting caught up on some details that I wasn't aware of, and this this is not a good thing. I can only imagine how many people they've done this to, and the fear of these organizations. So we'll be right back on the Ken Matthews Report.